There were a couple of different analytic websites that I really, really like to use to help you guys kind of identify different things that were going on throughout college basketball last season. It's super, super fun to not necessarily sit here and read off numbers, but talk about kind of what they mean in the context of game-by-game breakdowns and what they mean for projections and kind of how it demonstrates what we see on the courts and kind of puts things on paper and helps us categorize different things. It's really, really, I think, one of the more entertaining and useful sports analytics tools. I think that college basketball definitely does lend itself to a ton of different statistics that you can dive into that actually mean something, that you can actually take something away from. And sites like KenPom that we've talked about a ton, sites like Hasla, sites like Bart Torvic, which we're going to talk about today, they really do a phenomenal job of putting things together to kind of show you what certain teams are good at. And it sometimes is not always reflected in the style of play that you see on TV, and sometimes you need a little bit more of an in-depth breakdown. And Torvic has released their 2025 T-Rank college basketball projections. Right now, Houston is the best team, according to Torvic, heading into the 2024-2025 season. Kansas is number 2. Iowa State is number 3. And you get to see the adjusted offensive efficiency projection and the adjusted defensive efficiency projection. So what those numbers basically mean is just how efficient their offense or defense is on a game-by-game basis in terms of ranking nationally. And in case you don't know, there are over 360 Division I teams. So if I tell you a team's in the top 100, they're in the top third of the country. Still pretty good. If I tell you they're in the top 40, they're really good. If I tell you they're in the top 20, that's elite. That's very, very, very good. They're very good at that thing. Iowa State is projected to have the they are projected to have the best defense, but the 47th best offense. That's good enough for third in the country because of just how good their defense is. It also shows Torvic a projected record for every single team. It also shows returning minutes for every single team. And then there's also a projected effective talent rating, which quite frankly, I don't fully understand, which I don't think is going to be relevant for us here today. They also have projected effective experience, which I think will also be will be sort of effective for us here today. So, where does Kentucky rank? Well, you start to look down the list. You see Tennessee at number 7. You see Alabama at number 10. Auburn at number 11. You start to work your way down here. Texas at number 14. Mississippi State with a very balanced offense and defense inside the top 25, ranked number 15. Continue to go down here. You've got Texas A&M at 26, which I just simply don't understand at all. And then you have Kentucky, ranked number 30 in the projected Torvic ratings. Kentucky projected to have the 25th best offense in the country, which is very good, and the 57th best defense in the nation, which is also very good. It's not national championship caliber, that defense, but it's literally, I think, half in terms of like Kentucky's defense was rated like what, 110th nationally a season ago. It's literally they've just essentially jumped 50 spots in a projection with a roster that has not hit the floor yet. I think that's a really, really good sign of what could be. I think that Kentucky will probably outplay these projections to an extent, is what I'm trying to say here. And then it shows projected record. It has Kentucky going 19-12 and 9-9 in the SEC, despite being the 30th best team in the nation. What does that tell you? Forget the 19-12. What does that tell you? Don't focus on the fact that it's 19-12. What does 7 games better than 500 and being the 30th best team in the nation with really good projected offense and defense tell you? It tells you that the SEC is going to be really stinking hard this year. It tells you the SEC is going to be a rough place to play. The defense, I think, will probably be the best it's been in I don't know how long. This conference as a whole is going to play very good defense, I think. And when you look at the teams that are bringing in transfers, you start to see some interesting guard play as well for some of these different teams. Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee with Chaz Lanier, Kentucky, they've got some really good guards coming in. Texas A&M with Wade Taylor, they've got good guards. Florida, Ole Miss brought in a plethora of new transfers to play in their backcourt. This is a very, very good top-to-bottom conference. Ole Miss, by the way, ranked number 32nd with the 12th best offense in the nation. They're going to be good. This is going to be a very, very, very tough conference for Kentucky to get out of successfully. If Kentucky is able to get past that 24-win mark, that will be really, really impressive. That will be super impressive because of not only is Kentucky going to be dealing with the SEC slate, they're also going to be dealing with the non-conference slate, which, as we have started to realize, oh man, it's going to include Duke, Gonzaga, Ohio State, whoever Kentucky plays in the SEC ACC Challenge. If that's North Carolina, woo. It's going to be a rough go in terms of schedule. But what gives me confidence and what gives me hope is that I think Kentucky can genuinely outplay these projections because they are projections of a roster that has not been seen. And on paper, to me, when you look at the way that this thing is constructed, it looks good. I think it looks well-rounded, and I think Kentucky's defense will actually prove to be a little bit better than that top 60 ranking. You also look at returning minutes here. You get to see the percentage of returning minutes for all these different teams. You'll see teams hovering somewhere between 30 to 70% in terms of returning minutes. Kentucky sitting at a solid 0.1%. Just 0.1% here. If you scroll down the list, and that may honestly be lowest in the nation. We'll just scroll down all the way here. No, there are actually a few different teams that have no returning minutes. Obviously, Arkansas. You know what? I should have thought of that. Arkansas and Louisville have nothing returning. So, Arkansas, Louisville, two teams on Kentucky's schedule. Man, it's going to be interesting to see those three teams, or Kentucky see Kentucky play those two teams, and then also experience, adjusted, projected, effective experience. And I think this is like a year average per player on roster that is actually projected to be in the rotation and be effective. Kentucky's average 2.5 years, which is really solid. That's really high. It's a lot higher than what it normally is in the Calipari era. So 19-12, but a top 30 team, just raw for a product that has not been seen yet. That's pretty dang good. Let's talk a little bit about this roster as a whole as they enter the offseason relative to some other college basketball programs, because CBS Sports just recently put out their top 25, preseason top 25, after the NBA draft deadline and transfer portal decisions. Actually, I'm so sorry. Need to correct myself. This is actually from 24/7 Sports, although I believe Trotter actually at one point did write for CBS Sports. Maybe I just saw the name and just automatically assumed he was still with them. Anyway, Trotter released his preseason top 25. And he's got Kentucky in it. Unlike some other places, John Rothstein, we're still waiting on you to add the Wildcats to your top 25. Even though they added Robinson, Kentucky is still outside of his top 25 rankings. We're waiting on you, Rothstein. Love John Rothstein and everything that he does over at C. I believe he is actually with CBS Sports. I'm getting on a little bit of a tangent here. But Trotter released his top 25. He's got the Wildcats in it, and he has them not just inside the top 25, but all the way up at number 15, above a couple of different SEC schools that we've actually seen ranked over the Kentucky Wildcats over these past couple of weeks. We'll start here at the top and work our way down talk about how we feel about some of these teams relative to Kentucky, particularly teams in the SEC. At number 1, preseason number 1, you have Kansas, and man, Kansas has absolutely reloaded their roster. Hunter Dickinson is still here, much to the chagrin of many a college basketball fan. We're just going to have to deal with it. Houston is the preseason number 2 team, and then according to Isaac Trotter, number 3 and number 4, and this is something that I don't think we've ever seen, preseason number 3 are the Auburn Tigers, and then preseason number 4 are the Alabama Crimson Tide. Again, this update comes after Mark Sears announced that he would be returning to college. Alabama has a very, very good roster. Sears, players like Chris Youngblood, a ton of different role players from a season ago returning. This is a very, very good Alabama team. Auburn brought in a couple of transfers to reload their backcourt, and then their center duo of Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell. Broome, an All-American a season ago. They are back, so Auburn going to be very, very good. But Alabama, honestly, if we're picking and choosing here, I would put the Crimson Tide at 2. That's just where I would slide them right now. I'd put Auburn in that top 10 for sure, but number 3 is a lofty preseason expectation. At number 5, you have the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who have reloaded here in a couple different places through the transfer portal, gotten really, really good. Thankfully, they've not had a ton of freshmen and portal players walk on them or get injured just yet. That was the issue last season. And number 6, you have the reigning national champion, the UConn Huskies, who have a little bit of work to do, as do the Duke Blue Devils, as do the Duke Blue Devils, who lost everybody and their mother to the transfer portal. Of course, a very talented freshman class coming in alongside Cooper Flagg, who Kentucky is going to have to face, and he is going to be excellent. That's going to be a tough game for Kentucky, but definitely deserving to be inside the top 25 here. Iowa State with TJ Otzelberger are back inside the top 10. They were a 2 seed a season ago. I don't know a ton about Iowa State's roster, but I do know that the system that they have there and the defense that they have, I think definitely is deserving of at least a top 15 preseason ranking, just because of their results a season ago, I should say. Tennessee, Chaz Lanier, Jemai Mashack, Jordan Gainey, a bunch of different backcourt stars. They lost their starting center and Jonas Adu, the transfer portal, actually to John Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Tennessee, I think it's a good team. I think they are probably a top 15 team. Would I have them ranked number 9 over a couple of these different teams? I don't know. I don't think 9 is a bad ranking per se, but I'm not necessarily fired up about it. Number 10, North Carolina. Hey, by the way, in case you didn't see it, RJ Davis is back in college basketball. That is right. He's returning for another season with the Tar Heels. Armando Bacot officially out, but Davis is going to be flying solo with the Heels this upcoming season. I think they're going to be a good team. Sneaky good team. At number 11, you have Baylor. He's going to be really solid with Scott Drew. Hats off to him for staying in Waco. Number 12, you've got Arizona. Number 13, Sean Miller and the Xavier Musketeers. This is something I did not expect to see this offseason period, but also the fact that they were able to get inside the top 25 period, I think inside the top 15. I think is very, very impressive. 16 and 18 a year ago. Returning a couple of different big-time pieces while also bringing in some players from the transfer portal and the high school ranks. I think overall this roster is good. Is it top 13 good? I'm not sure, especially over a team like Creighton, who is ranked number 14, bringing back Ryan Kalkbrenner and a couple of other big pieces, losing Trey Alexander, losing Baylor Shireman, 2 excellent three-point shooters in their own right. That is a huge blow to the Blue Jays, but they got, I believe, Stephen Ashworth back as well, if I'm not mistaken. They're running it back with a couple of older pieces, so they just need to kind of fill in different roster spots. If they could find a guy like Shireman again, that'd be excellent, but I don't know if they're going to. And then at number 15, you've got the Kentucky Wildcats. The only team that I would have major gripes with being over Kentucky are the Xavier Musketeers, just because of how unproven they are, having gone 16 and 18 a season ago. And again, I don't know a ton about their roster, but it is an improved team, as are the Wildcats, I believe. But if we're going to check the boxes here, if we're going to go unproven roster versus unproven roster, I would argue that Kentucky, I think, has a little bit more to offer up against what Xavier and Sean Miller are currently putting out. At number 16, you have UCLA. Number 17, Indiana, who has done work in the transfer portal this offseason. Number 18, you have Purdue. 19, you have Texas Tech. Number 20, you have Texas A&M, who I don't think should be inside the top 25 at all. Again, we're really, really big on efficiency on this podcast. Wade Taylor and the multiple players that Texas A&M have brought back, not only are they not efficient, but they are statistically horrible when it comes to taking inside and outside shots. They just end up getting a ton of opportunities because of how well they rebound. I don't like the system. It's not that I dislike them as players. I think they're very, very talented. Obviously, they performed very well against Kentucky. Hats off to them. But A&M, I'm not a big believer in as a top 25 team, period. Number 21, Florida. This is a team that I am a believer in. The Gators, very, very underrated, I think, with Todd Golden, especially heading into the next couple of seasons. I think he's going to build them into something special. Number 22, Cincinnati. Number 23, Arkansas. So Kentucky is 7 spots higher than John Calipari and the Razorbacks. Number 24, Illinois. And then number 25, Marquette. So Kentucky, I think, is in a good spot here. I think at number 15, it's fine. I don't have any major complaints with this. I'm very, very happy that the Wildcats are inside the top 15, period. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think? Kentucky ranked number 15 in Isaac Trotter's preseason poll. You can leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments below.